Okay, it is starting. You want
I
to
can hear you.
start off, David, or do you want me to start off?
No, I could start. I could see now that you're recording. Okay, so it is 6:30 p.m. on February 9th, 2021. This is a meeting of the Bylaws Committee of Community Board 11. All the members of the committee are present, as well as Naomi Pemberton, a community board member. And what happened to Debbie? Oh, there's Debbie. And Debbie Kowalik. Kowalik? Oh, I can never pronounce your name. Debbie, how do you say your name? Debbie?
Maybe she's me, David.
Okay. I apologize for mispronouncing it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Kowalik.
Kowalik, thank you. And we're also joined by Debbie Kowalik, a member of Community Board 11. And we're also joined by a member of the community who is identified only as Magdalene.
I was 45.
Yes,
Okay, so we'll get started. We have a long agenda, but I think we'll be able to get through it efficiently. I want to start by asking if there would be, Debbie, what are your feelings? Do you want to address your issue at the end? Do you want to hear and participate in the rest of the discussion, or would you like us to put your issue right at the front?
If you could put it at the front, that'd be great, because I'm actually not at home.
Okay. Was there any objection on the behalf of the committee to putting this issue first? Naomi, do you mind?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. No problem, David.
Great. So Debbie had recommended yesterday that the committee consider adding a change to the bylaws that when a person is removed from a committee by the board chair, that a reason be given. Debbie, do you want to speak about the issue?
It's really kind of hard for me to speak about it now. I don't know what was forwarded to you in the email.
All I had on the email was, I think what you had sent, it was a very brief email, basically just outlining the recommended change, which I forwarded to the committee. Did you speak to
and then Jeremy put in proper wording of how it should be worded.
And also, I think he pointed out that it was already a requirement that when a person is removed, that it's done in writing. So there is a written notice with a date on it, but there is no reason. So what you're really asking is that we add that change. Have you had a chance to speak to Al about it?
Just only briefly through text message. I have not gone back to him.
Can you share with us what he said, or you prefer not to?
Well, no. Yeah, kind of prefer not to right now.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So in terms of this,
David.
yes.
David, excuse me. Someone has their TV or something on in the back, and it's kind of hard to make out when people are talking.
I think it should be better now because I see that everybody is muted. It might have been Debbie because she was talking.
Okay.
So Joanne and Sandy, do you have any opinions on this?
No, it's fine with me. I always thought that we did give them a reason why they were being taken off. But maybe I was wrong. I mean, I don't even remember the last time it was done.
Well, it happens pretty much in the normal course of business. People go on and off committees for various reasons, either because of non-attendance or because they're not interested in serving on that committee. It's fairly common. Joanne, did you want to? You're muted, Joanne. Are you?
Okay, I got it.
Now we
No,
can.
I think it's a good idea. It's a good idea to tell them why and for it to be public record. I have no objection to that.
Okay. Naomi, did you want to speak on this at all?
Well, I do have some concerns. You know, it depends on what you're being transparent about. I don't know, if it's just, I'm switching to another committee, I don't see any issue, but if there's some real issue, I don't know if people want that publicly stated. I don't know.
Well,
How
I
do
don't
you
know.
feel comfortable about that?
Would it have to
General
be
terms, it could be.
Would it have to be public to the entire community board, or would it just be known to the member? Debbie, what were your thoughts on that? Would you think that that you were looking to have it published to the whole board, or just to the member?
Well, definitely published to the member, but it could be published to the board. But I'm more concerned of removal. But if Naomi is thinking like if somebody wants to change from one thing to another, then that does not necessarily need to be published.
Right.
But what I'm getting at is if somebody's being removed from, especially if they don't agree with the choice.
Okay, so if we went ahead with something like this, I wonder if we could add some guidance in parentheses within the bylaws saying that if a reason is given, then we could give some examples, maybe attendance, interested in a different committee, or different categories that can kind of cue in the chair of the board as to that a reason would have to be given, and that these would be kind of the acceptable reasons or what's expected. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
All right. So Joanne and Sandy, if you're generally in favor of this, then maybe we'll move on, and I could, as we gather all of our discussion items, we could put everything together in one motion, so we don't have to have so many different motions.
Okay.
All right, Sandy, are you in agreement generally?
She muted. She might be muted.
Yes, she is. All right, Debbie, we're going to move on. You're welcome to stay, but if you wanted to drop off, it sounds like we'll be pushing this forward. The process is that it'll appear for a discussion item at the February full board meeting and then get voted on in the March full board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on, we'll go back to the agenda that was published. So that brings us to approving the minutes of the January 6, 2021 Bylaws Committee meeting. We put that out last month, and it's on the board's website. I think you generally had said that it accurately reflected what had happened at the last meeting. So if that's the case, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sandy, maybe you should unmute yourself. Jeremy, are you able to unmute Sandy, or she has to do it?
I'm unmuting
Oh, okay.
I'm unmuted, David.
Okay.
I thought I was unmuted before. The only thing I had with Debbie's suggestion was if we list it, we should make sure that if someone wanted to leave, they should state why they wanted to leave, be it a conflict of interest or whatever reason. If they want to change a committee. We're making it sound as if they're being taken off because the board made the decision, but sometimes it's the person themselves.
Yes, and we can account for that in the various reasons that we could put into the bylaws. But I think Debbie had specifically referenced the part of the current bylaws that give the board chair the ability to add a person to a committee and to remove. So I think it was in that context alone.
Okay, well.
There are other ways that people can be added to a committee. The community board actually has the authority to do that under another section of the bylaws, but I don't think that was what Debbie was getting at. Let's see.
She's talking about removal mostly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes the removal, Joanne, is at the request of the person from the board itself.
A person might not want to share why, and I think it's more important if we make the decision to say what it is. We can't force them to say. They might have a personal reason they don't want to disclose.
And that's all they need to say. Or they could just say personal
reason.
reason.
Al,
That's it.
I see Al D'Angelo, the chair of the community board, has just joined our meeting. Thank you, Al. We just concluded a discussion, but before we move on, we wanted to get your opinion on Debbie's recommendation that the board chair give a reason when somebody's removed from a committee. Do you want to speak on that, Al?
Yeah. I have no problem giving a reason. What happened with it in the Debbie situation, and that stays here, the chair of the committee asked that she be removed. She had trouble working with her. Now, the chair
Al,
has
I just want to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and it's going to be published. So
Okay.
we don't want you to tell us things that we don't need to know for our, we're looking at the broader issues.
I have no problem giving a reason why the person is being removed, but if a committee chair asks that person be removed for cause or for whatever reason, maybe they just don't get along or they don't seem to be able to communicate with each other, I don't see that as a problem. So the committee chair, I can appoint people to a committee, but again, the committee chair's responsibility is to work with that person. If the committee chair is having trouble working with that person, then they have the right to turn around and say, look, I want that person off my committee. So I have no problem giving the person the reason.
And if I can just add, in my experience, sometimes as the chair of the board, you might need to just rebalance things. You might have too many people on one committee, you have not enough on another. So that could just be a reason in and of itself, with not having to do with anybody's performance or attendance.
Oh, absolutely, and I've done that. One committee is has more people than another, and I'll just move somebody from one to another.
Okay.
I like to give the people the opportunity to be on something that they want to be on, because this way they have a vested interest in the committee. But when push comes to shove, the ultimate decision will be mine.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement. So with that, we'll move on. We had I just made a motion to approve the minutes. Joanne approved them. I'm sorry, Joanne seconded it. There was no discussion, so we called for a vote. So I think that vote was unanimous. So we'll move on to the other items on the agenda. We're going to talk first about Naomi's recommendations, and then Jeremy will get to yours. So Naomi had first recommended that we clarify the attendance policy. Naomi, did you want to speak on that?
Right.
still has
So when
on
I
their
was reading the
TV.
bylaws, it was
Go ahead, Naomi.
okay. When I was reading the bylaws, to me, it was a little bit confusing. At first, I thought you were just talking about the board meetings, but it also addresses the committee meetings as well, which I learned something new actually from that part of the bylaws as well. So I was thinking we can either make it just a little clearer where you're addressing either the committee board meetings. This is the attendance that is required. This is the time frames and things like that. And then state community board committee meetings also require X, Y, and Z, because it just looks like, when I was reading it, just looked like it was all in its own. It looked like it was one thing, one community board meeting, or I was just thinking that you were talking about community board meetings, period.
Well,
But it's addressing two different things.
are you able to see that what I'm sharing on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the section that you're referring to, Article 3, Section 4 removal.
Correct.
Okay, so this is in the context of removal of a community board member from the community board by the community board. The borough president has his or her own authority to appoint and remove members, but this has to do with the community boards removing a member. I'm just trying to give some context. And so what had happened is that this section has I agree that the language is a bit tortured and it needs to be cleaned up. Rather than trying to fix the language in these two sections, I think we should take the approach that you're suggesting, Naomi, that we really should set aside these two sections, but then make it much clearer and short and to the point. Because what has happened over time, that the borough president's office and the community board has for many, many years looked very closely at attendance. And attendance or non-attendance at community board meetings was a main reason for removal. And then what was happening is people were attending the full board meetings, but they weren't attending committee meetings.
Right.
So we had to change the bylaws to say, well, if you don't attend committee meetings, then so that's how this came about.
Right.
So,
and I'll tell you, I was not aware of this. When we're orientated, they just talk about board meetings, full board meetings. So that's why I think it's so important to make sure that this is clear to someone that's coming in, because I don't think it's understood. So that's why you're getting that attendance only at the board meetings, because they're like, oh my gosh, if I miss a board meeting, I'm out of here. But they should understand it's the same level of expectation for the committee meetings as well.
That's an interesting point, Naomi, because I know that the letters that the borough president sent out for the appointments, they refer specifically to attending board meetings, but I don't know if they do refer to the committee meetings.
No,
So,
they don't.
Sandy, did you want to speak on this?
No, but I just vaguely remember that somewhere along the line we had something where if you didn't attend 3 committee meetings, you could, be taken off that committee or off the board. Maybe that combined with the regular board meeting. But that was a long time ago, so things have changed.
You can't see it on the screen, Sandy, because you're joining by phone, but the rule that we have for committee meetings is 3 consecutive non-excused absences from a committee meeting is cause for removal, or 5 total non-excused absences from a committee meeting. That means it doesn't have to be consecutive. And that's the same rule for the full board as well. So I think we do need to clarify some of the language. Joanne, did you want to say anything on this?
Here.
Are you in agreement? Did you want to speak on it at all, Joanne?
No,
no, sorry. No, it seems pretty clear. I mean, I guess you could clean up the language a little, but it says here 5 total absences between September 1st and June 30th.
Right.
So that would be like you could have, if you missed them all, you're missing a lot. You're missing 5 and 5, be 10 total.
Right, because we don't meet in July and August.
Right.
So we meet 10 times a year. So if you're missing 5 meetings, you're missing half the meetings of the entire year.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Al, did you want to speak on this at all?
And then I think remember that the person that's being removed comes before the board, and the board makes the final decision. We did that with South Conforto, where we brought him up. He missed, I think, 8 or 10. I think he might have missed them all. And he came before the board, and he gave a good reasoning, or people felt he gave good reasoning for his absences, and they voted to keep him on. So I mean, it all comes down to the full board.
But also, there's some flexibility with the committee meetings, meaning like, hey, I feel this person needs to be removed because of attendance, but then they can be presented to the board and say, well, this is my reason. See, that should all be.
Community board, full board meetings and committee meetings, there's flexibility.
And I think that we should know that the executive board, the officers of the board have been sensitive to this issue, because at the same time that we were dealing with Sal, there was another member who also was up, and then there was an opportunity given to them to explain, and they did that. I think, Al, they sent you a letter, and it was considered in confidence, and there was a report made to the full board, and no further action was taken. So there is room for due process, but also for understanding that in a volunteer position, people do have situations that require some understanding. And so,
David,
yes.
if I may, when Harriet makes a phone call to say that there is this committee meeting or this board meeting, etc., she distinctly says at the end, if you are unable to attend, please call the office. So she's giving you an opportunity to get an excuse absence.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
It's a
absolutely.
legitimate reason.
And that leads
But-
back to not only, you know, common courtesy to your committee members, which is, you know, if somebody doesn't attend a Zoom meeting, which is all very new to us, that's one thing. But, you know, consider when we were meeting in person and you're standing outside the community board office and, you know, you're the only person there. I've had this many times. You're the only
Oh,
person
you're
there.
not alone.
And
We've had that too.
and you can't have a meeting. You know, you can't conduct business and nobody's even said anything. So that's very frustrating.
Yeah.
So
Go in. Remember our health committee meeting?
good
We wound up
Lord.
in a,
Standing out in the
we
cold.
understand. We understand.
So let's see if we can move along. I think we have general agreement on that. So Naomi, you had also recommended that we add the New York City harassment policy to
Yes.
bylaws, and you had sent me a link to the city has its own policy. You're referring to sexual harassment and the other harassment policies that the city may have, which
Yes.
of course as the community board is a part of city government, and we're bound by all those rules. And so I think we can and should do that, but I think we should be careful about putting any particular language, because the city is going to change their policies from time to time for good reason. So I think it would act more as a reminder to everybody that they're covered by these policies. They have to abide by these policies. They have to know what the policy is, and then we could provide a link to the
That's a
city
good
website.
idea.
Perfect. I was just thinking that.
I
Like,
was
if we
thinking
can
the
just,
same thing.
yeah, if we
Maybe
can
we're all
just
in
make it,
agreement.
Okay, so I think we're all
and let people know that we're under the city's policy. That's, I just want
Right,
people
and
to understand
then
that we're
give
not
a link.
operating on our own. You know what I mean?
exactly.
So let me just get this straight. So you wouldn't print the whole thing because it's very long and involves
Correct.
a lot of language. You would say, we are abiding by these rules and different things, and then give a link. I think that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
that makes great sense.
Yeah.
Al, do you have any issues with that?
Fine, that makes sense.
Okay. The next issue was the quorum requirement. If I understood what you were requesting us to consider, Naomi, it had to do with committee meetings, and I'm trying to get down. This is your markup. If I can summarize it, I think you were suggesting that if there was not a quorum, meaning more than half of the appointed members of the committee present, that if the chair and the co-chair were present, that they would be able to make decisions on behalf of the committee.
Yes, and I was asking also to add a parliament person, someone to, like a third, at least 3 people, so that if one person is missing or 2 people are missing, there'll be at least a third person that can take the meeting going forward. And also, if there's any type of voting or anything, that they would be able to, those 3 people would be able to break those ties or anything of that nature.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead. What was your question?
I looked into this, and I don't think that we can change the quorum requirement because it relates back to our role as public officers under New York state law. And in New York state law, in what's called the general construction law, it's not referring to building anything. It has to do with the general construction of the laws. And there's a definition of quorum for public bodies, which refers to one more than half of the appointed members of that body. So for the full community board, we can have up to 50 members. That means you have to have 26. If we have 50 members, you have to have 26 in attendance to conduct business. With this committee, for example, we have 3 members, so we would need 2 in order to conduct business. We can't change that. We can't say that only the chair and co-chair, if they're present, can make decisions. So I think we're kind of stuck on that. But
Is there any way, because I'll tell you right now, like a lot of the committees that I've attended, we've always have this quorum issue, always. And I noticed that, thank you for pointing out
On the
that
chair.
list of committees and their co-chairs. I didn't even know that was on the website. So that was good for me, education-wise. But a lot of the committees don't have a co-chair or a supporting person.
They do.
They
Most do.
should.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah, if you look at the list, it just says chairperson, chair. Some have co-chairs, but not all of them, unless it's not updated.
Maybe that's a typo, but there always is a chair and a co-chair.
Always, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Always.
And Naomi, just as you said, part of the problem is the fact that when you have a committee and you're chairing a committee and people don't show up, now you have the right to turn around and look. We've had 5 meetings, and this person only 1 out of 5 meetings. I really want them off my committee because I need a quorum, and this person's hurting due process here.
Right.
And then I would go along with whatever the committee chair said, and I would have that person removed.
So I'm just making suggestions because I've been to a lot of meetings and there's always like a quorum issue. Is there any way we can maybe appoint 2 people that maybe can come to the meetings, and if we're having a quorum issue?
Then they would
No,
be part of
then
the,
they would have
have to be in the committee.
They have to be on the committee.
They have to have interest and be on the committee.
The only other thing I could say is if you pool the people of, say, a committee where there are 7 people, and if someone doesn't show up a lot, you could say to them, do you really want to be on this committee? Do you want to change the committee? That could be done also.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Joanne?
Well, also, the way I think we solve the quorum issue is the quorum is needed for a motion. And if we can't make a motion, we would just bring it before the full board.
Okay.
Okay.
Isn't that so?
So a
chair
quorum,
Makes sense.
a quorum is needed to officially, like David said earlier, officially conduct business.
Right.
So to legally start the meeting, and any board member can make a motion at the full board, right? With the exception of bylaw amendments. But ideally, everything's handled in committee first, so we don't tie up discussion at the full board meeting. And one in terms of quorum issues, the executive board is gonna look at attendance. But in the meantime, I say this time and time again: the committee, every chair should ask that the person's removed from their committee. In the meantime, all they have to do is talk to Al.
And also to address the issue, Naomi, of the parliamentarian for each committee, that's pretty scary for most people. The community board as a whole doesn't have a parliamentarian. It's true that in our bylaws, parliamentary procedure is the responsibility of the sergeant at arms, but the sergeant at arms is a new position. Only 2 people have held it. And I think it's fair to say that they really haven't exercised that role of knowing parliamentary procedure and giving opinions on it. So I really think it would just scare everybody if every committee had to have that, because I don't think that the knowledge is out there. So I think there's a general agreement based on the state law and our discussion now that we're not going to take really any action on this particular recommendation.
Okay.
With that, I'll move on because we still have a number of items to discuss. The next is to publish the euler hearing notices on the board website. I don't have any objection to it. Jeremy, would that be a burden on the staff to add that to the website when they come up?
No, I just want to have. I know people like us publishing stuff. I mean, we do generally publish everything. So this would normally go under the agendas page. I mean, this last ULEP item is, better communication needs to be between Ken Galnick and me. or the land use chair, but generally we try to publish everything. So
Well,
if there-
that's true, Jeremy, but from the board member's perspective, the euler things are so technical and they have a tendency to be identified by a number assigned by the city. So we've had, not Ken, but we've had other chairs of the land use committee who've made a report where they say, well, we're considering, request number 327-91786, and nobody knows what the heck that means. So, we need more explanation as to, and I think if that were put out on the website, I think people would be able to study up and know more about it before it comes up for a vote.
Well, ideally it's handled in committee, and then there's minutes. The problem with the land use, I think at least one of the last land use meetings, it was really short time frame, especially when I got the minutes. Yeah, I mean, it is very technical. It is not easy for people to understand.
Do you, Jeremy, do you have explanatory material that come along with these euler petitions that and hearing notices that can be published in advance, even if it does come on short notice?
We usually get something. I know for this last one, I asked them for a map specifically for our district. I never got it until the borough board was going to vote, and they wanted us to vote in favor of it or something crazy. So, yeah, I mean, we do get things. Whether it's going to be easy for you to understand is another matter. But what I always want is, I'm happy to make any changes to the community board website, but just help guide me where, and know the process of what's going on to begin with. I know the website's not easy to maneuver, but I will walk, I like these remote meetings. I'll walk anybody through it if you give me your time.
All right, so I think there's agreement that we'll publish the ULURP hearing notices on the website, and we'll leave it.
Click on the speaker.
We'll put that down as a recommendation. Moving on. In terms of the
Not showing because of the
There's
thing.
a little arrow. Click on that.
So the next item was the Pledge of
No,
Allegiance
I
at
can't
virtual
find it.
meetings.
Not showing.
I think, Al, we did it once or twice when we started the Zoom meeting for the board, and then we stopped. Do you have an opinion on it or a preference?
Yeah, I think we should start the Pledge of Allegiance. All meetings start with the Pledge of Allegiance. All city meetings start with it. We should start with it.
So in that case, I think we should do two things. I think we should change that, and we should do it. And then we should, drop something into the bylaws that make it clear that if virtual meetings, it's also done. All right. If there's no discussion on that,
That works.
we'll move forward. The next recommendation was making the Sanitation and Environmental Protection Committee a subcommittee of the Public Safety Committee. So I don't know the context on this, and so Naomi, Al, do you want to speak on this?
I would just talk to the chairs of the committees that are affected and get their opinion. And if they're willing to work together as one, that's fine.
Also, I think you should take into consideration that that's going to be a very, very large committee, and hopefully you would get the quorum.
I also think they're not really related.
Maybe.
They're not that
Right.
related.
I was thinking they were related because the overall safety, right, of the public, I'm thinking overall safety, not just,
Maybe it's too broad, though. That would be too broad.
Like sanitation does the roads, the garbage cleanup, stuff like that. So maybe that's why she probably may be thinking, with the roads, et cetera, the safety issue. I don't know. But
More
it's
related to
always
health,
yeah.
you know?
What?
So you could have
Yeah.
that argument, too.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking, Joanne. If anywhere, maybe health would be better.
Yeah, but if you have a subcommittee, then how do you meet? Do you meet as a whole committee, or do you only call the thing when there's a problem with sanitation?
Well, I don't know that we should make it a subcommittee of any other committee.
Yeah.
Only because we haven't had that, and it just makes things more cumbersome than they need to be. I think that if there's agreement, we should fold those responsibilities into another committee. Well, at first I was thinking public safety, like Naomi was saying, but then like the other recommendation to put it under health makes a lot of sense too. I think the history behind this, why sanitation is a separate committee, is because we've had so much trouble over so many years with trash pickup and mostly snow removal, that we wanted a way to we wanted a group of people that were focused on this issue.
Yeah, I think it would be too broad of an issue it would be too cumbersome.
For public safety?
To have it separate would be too I think that, like you said, the sanitation issue, people should focus on that, on sanitation, trash pickup.
You might
Snow
be able,
removal, stuff like that. Which is what they normally do.
But you know what? When I think about it a little bit more, maybe it makes sense, because I know Yahe always talks about, not having much to do it for public safety, and sanitation hasn't met since 2019.
Why?
What's that? I didn't hear you.
I said I can't imagine why he wouldn't have a lot to do in public safety. It's such a massive issue.
yeah,
Crime.
he deals with calls in quite a bit, so he does do, that is a busy committee. If you want to put sanitation under health, you might be able to work something like that out, because good sanitation has to do with good health. Stretching it a little bit, but because the sanitation committee doesn't have that many meetings, as someone pointed out, during the snow season, that's when you have that's what that committee was set up for, to deal with the issues with snow and sanitation. But
Well,
other
you know
than
what?
that,
Then you could make it an ad hoc committee that meets only when necessary.
Could do that.
Well, I think what
We're
I'm hearing
talking-
is that. Oh, go ahead, Al.
talk to him and find out if that's what he wants to do. He's not under
yeah,
any pressure to meet,
So I think what I'm hearing is that there's not really a consensus to move forward for a bylaw change on this, but really to discuss the issue, with the committee chairs. So I think the bylaws committee is going to step back for a little bit from this and leave it to Al and Naomi. You should definitely talk to Al, since you're interested in this issue, and let's see what people think, because we're not here to to just move people around like chess pieces. People need to be where they're most effective. So why don't we leave it there and move on? Okay, so before I move to Jeremy's requested changes, Naomi, were there any issues that we didn't address that you want to bring up?
No, you addressed all my concerns.
So with that, we'll move to, let me stop sharing this and see if I can share the version that, there we go. Okay, so you should be able to see now, it looks the same on its face, it's the bylaws, but these were the Jeremy's markups. So Jeremy, do you have a few minutes to talk us through some of these? A lot of them were grammatical and stylistic changes.
Yeah, we can just get to the crux of the important ones.
Okay. You guys.
So if you keep going down. What's that, Sandy?
Someone has on their TV or something in the background.
Oh,
Joanne, can you mute yourself?
sure.
All right, so if you keep going down, David.
Okay.
Keep going.
I agree we need to clean up this about any reference to the second vice chair needs to be deleted.
Yeah, no, that's
Right.
right. I've already done that, but based on what I could do. If you keep going down. So so that's a small thing with the exceptional leadership committee. More importantly, the leadership committee is not in the back of the list of committees, and maybe that's the more appropriate place for it versus in the middle of the bylaws. So if anybody wants to go quickly and see exactly what the committee descriptions are, that was the first, I think, substantive suggestion I had. Does that make sense to everybody?
Well, it does, except that it's a bit out of balance because the leadership committee has this lengthy description. I'm just scrolling down to it. And it also has in there about the voting. So I think we can move this section that describes the committee, or maybe just, you see, like this is really the meat of it, what it does.
Yeah.
It really sets the agenda for the board meetings and makes recommendations here. So I think that's what should appear in the committee list, and the rest of it really needs to be back in the bylaws.
Or if you keep the bylaws the way they are and just have, this leadership here and see, reference the earlier section so they know to go where to go to.
We could do that.
It might be the quickest thing or easiest thing.
Okay. And then going back up, I just want to ask you, I didn't understand this section, this change that you were recommending here under the committees, section 2, when you say with the exception of the leadership committee, are you referring to the fact that the members of the executive board, the officers also serve on the leadership committee?
Yeah, so most importantly, the chair of the committee is not chosen by Al. That's
Oh, I see. And also the
what I was
committee
getting at.
membership is the chairs of the various committees and the executive board, so it's really not chosen by the chair of the board. I see what you're saying. Okay, that's
things like that.
Sense.
That's not big. The bigger thing is clarifying the language on who's up for election every year, which is always confusing, whether you're a board member or a staff member.
Where is that? That's further down.
No, it's up. It's further up. It's about elections.
Yeah, we remember once we changed a lot of the
Right there,
wording
It's
to try
scroll
to.
down, David. That's right. Right there. It looks like you
Yeah.
accepted the changes, or that's. Yeah, so that's my proposal up above in the red. It's just making it very simple.
Yeah. No, I agree. This has a lot of tortured language, has to do with when we added the sergeant at arms position, and
Right.
we had staggered elections. So a certain number of officers are elected. We have elections each year, and then we have some officers elected in one year, and then other officers elected in the other year. And then, so yeah, I agree. But this is really not a substantive change. It's cleaning up the language just to make it clearer. So, would you agree, Jeremy? We're really not changing anything. We're just trying to make it easier for people to read.
It's more substantive than, like putting the word regarding versus something, a comma or something,
Yes, but it's not changing the elections. It's not changing the number of officers. It's not changing the term of office. It's making it clearer and easier to understand.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So let me just scroll down. I think the more substantive one, and I think
the last one,
what has to do with deleting the reference to the staff resolution committee.
Yeah, or merging it with ethics if there's something that needs to be included.
Well, here's the section on the staff resolution committee, and I can tell you that we could read all this and go through it. It applies only to the staff, and I'm not actually sure that it would apply to Harriet and to Chris because they're union, and I'm not sure if we could do this. I think it might only apply to you, Jeremy.
Yeah, legally we were told when we were told we had to create an ethics and disciplinary committee, it cannot apply to union staff.
Right.
You're correct.
So I could tell you that for a fact, the staff resolution committee has never been formed. It's never considered any issues. And it's been around, I'm going to guess, I don't know, 6 or 8 years, maybe. Sounds about right. So Al, if you don't have any objection, we can just delete it.
That's fine. It's not, as you said, it hasn't been used for I think it's 8 years.
Okay. Joanne, Sandy, do you have any, do you want to speak?
No, I think it's a great idea. If something needs to be addressed, we could always have an ad hoc committee formed.
That's right.
What do you
I
think?
think it's a good idea to delete it.
Okay.
Yeah, delete it and, right, and have just something as needed.
Right, but shouldn't there be any language on how to address any complaints from the district manager
This
or
is,
handle?
well,
Are
this
you
is
gonna put
not,
any language?
the staff resolution committee is not complaints from the district manager. It's it has to do with the performance. Well, no, it was, this had to do with unionized staff, and we couldn't really do it.
Right.
It really isn't allowed because the union, because Harriet and Chris are in a union, we can't do this. They're governed under,
Right, should be all deleted.
so
Yeah.
we really
The
have,
whole thing, yeah.
that's why we
Yeah.
never formed the committee, because we couldn't do it. It
We
was,
couldn't do it at all.
Yeah, the language says implemented by the district manager, the
Mm-hmm.
resolution proposed, that all deals with his subordinates.
right.
Yeah.
So, and
that's-
since,
Right.
and since the unionized staff have their own way of dealing with this through the union rules, and the district manager is governed under the ethics and disciplinary, we know that because there were already issues with him that were dealt with by the committee, that, you know, I think we could safely delete this without having to really add any language to ethics and disciplinary.
Okay, I see what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying.
Okay, so that
Okay.
covers all of the issues that were to be discussed today. So I'm going to try to make one motion that ticks off the proposed changes. The purpose of it is not to come up with the exact language. It's to meet our requirement to have a meeting, to discuss it, to come to a consensus, to push it forward to the full board. There'll be a presentation in February. There'll be a vote in March, and then we'll be able to come up with all the exact language. If we do all that now, we'll be here for a number of hours, and it'll just be more confusing. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to make a motion that the bylaws committee approve the following changes to the bylaws. 1, add a reason for when the board chair removes a member of a committee. 2, to clarify the attendance policy as it relates to board member removal. 3, add reference to the New York City.
David, if
Yes.
I can interrupt once. On the removal of a committee person that's working on a committee, they have a right to ask down the chair. I would think. I mean, that's something that we can discuss if you'd like. But sit down with the committee chair and ask why they were removed. Myself and the committee chair and the person being removed should sit down and discuss the reasons why they're being removed from a particular committee.
So would you
That's up to
prefer,
you.
would you prefer that we not go ahead with this, or that we revise it to add the sit down provision?
I don't know. What do you think? I'm just throwing that out just to see what you think.
I think it's a great idea, but I just want to make sure people are clear. Are you saying that they can make a meeting, or do they address it at a committee meeting?
It would be addressed myself, committee, and the person. I mean, they have a right to know why they're being removed. I mean, I can give reason myself. That's not a problem. I could do that. Or
Right.
it should be committee chair.
Okay.
Something that you people can decide on, and whichever way you go is fine.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and people will have their
So-
voice, whatever they want to say at that time. Yeah.
So then why don't we add that? Sandy and Joanne, do you agree?
I agree.
Yeah, I
Good
agree.
idea.
Okay, so
I
then,
agree.
so then in addition to the reason for removal before that there'll be a opportunity for discussion. I'm just
Okay.
making
If
some
the
notes.
person removes so chooses, they may not choose, or it's then it's a dead issue.
Right, if requested, so opportunity for discussion, if requested, with committee chair and board chair, and member. Okay, I'm just making some notes. All right, so then I'll move on. So the next item as part of this motion was to add a reference to the New York City harassment policy to the bylaws, which will remind board members that they are required to be aware of the policy and follow the policy. And there'll be a link to the current policy in effect at that time on the city website. Number 3 is to
Sounds
publish
good.
euler hearing notices on the board website. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So number 5 would be to say the Pledge of Allegiance at all meetings of the community board, including virtual meetings. Number 6 is to make various grammatical, stylistic, and organizational changes recommended by the district manager, and that I will detail in the minutes, but it will relate back to our discussion today. And finally, to delete reference to the staff resolution committee as not needed since the creation of the Ethics and Disciplinary Committee. So that's my motion. Is there a second?
Sandy second.
Jeremy, did you want to speak on it? Any
No, I
discussion?
just want to say I had to mute Joanne because of the TV or whatever she had in the background. That's all.
Okay. Is there any other discussion before we take a vote?
No, you've done a good job, David, summarizing.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we're unanimous. Okay, so that brings us to the gallery session. This be an opportunity to ask once again, the person who joined the meeting is Magdalena. Can you identify yourselves with your full name so we can say in our minutes who you were?
Hi, yes, my name is Magdalena Montanez. I live in District 11.
Okay, we're at the gallery session. Did you want to speak on any of these issues?
No, this is actually my first time coming in. I just wanted to listen in on the meeting. I was somewhat interested in joining the committee, but then I just realized your date just passed.
Well, in order to be a member of this committee, you'd have to be a member of the community board.
The community board, that's what I'm interested in.
Do you know how to do that? There's on the borough president's website, there's a place to download an application.
Right, I did look at that. It looks like there was a date of February 5th, and I just went on there.
Oh, okay. Well, you might want to reach out to the director of community planning boards, Tom Lucania, and see if there's any wiggle room in submitting an application. Just a few days ago.
Okay, yes, I may do that. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other anybody else from the public, which I don't see anyone else on.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. I'd like to speak, please.
Who is this?
Roxanne Delgado.
Hi, Roxanne. What would you like to say?
I'd like to first speak about the euler process. And I'd like to give one example where Community Board 11 did not follow the process, because there's a time clock when it comes to the euler process.
But we.
Go ahead, Roxanne.
May I speak, please?
Yes.
Blondell Commons. Blondell Commons is one example. Community Board 11 is supposed to hold a hearing first before the borough president holds his hearing on the same issue. But with Blondell Commons, Community Board held a hearing on January 18 of last year. Yet the BP already heard the meeting beforehand and released his report on his recommendation on January 19 of 2020. So what's funny was that the Community Board 10 and 11 voted against the Blondell Commons rezoning, yet the day after the BP released his report that he was in favor of the rezoning. And this is what we have issues with. The Community Board doesn't follow the euler process. Community Board is supposed to be the first one to hold the hearing, make that recommendation, send that report to the BP's office. The BP holds his meeting within 60 days because there's a time clock. They have to hold these hearings within a certain time because then the clock runs out and then it goes to the City Hall for the final vote. So Community Board 11 actually held their public hearing after the BP released his recommendation for the Blondell Commons, which was released on January 19. So going forward, I think Community Board 11 needs to follow your process. Because this is an issue, because we couldn't attend the BP's hearing because it was after the fact.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
I understand, but I can't speak to those issues myself. I never served on the land use committee. Jeremy, did you want to address that?
No, I mean, Ms. Delgado often brings up a lot of good points, and there's always room for improvement.
Okay, but it's not about improvement. It's that we have already a procedure that's being followed citywide, but it hasn't been followed by CB11, and it puts the community board at disadvantage because then we cannot organize on a timely basis if we're either for or against a proposal. In this case, most of us were against the Blondell rezoning. And this puts us at disadvantage because we were against it, but unfortunately the board president was mandated to hold his hearing within the time frame. So by the time he held his hearing, before Community Board 11 held theirs, and they had a recommendation of no, and the BP had yes, which is fine. We didn't have a time to make our case for the BP's office, and this is not fair for the public.
Okay, was there anything else that you wanted to be heard on, Roxanne?
Attendance. I don't know why I have bylaws if bylaws are not followed, because per bylaws, several of the members of the community board should already have received a letter last month at the executive board meeting notifying them that they would be up for removal if they did not have a justified excuse why they missed 5 meetings in one fiscal year. And they were given an extra chance. And some of them didn't even bother to show up at the full board meeting last month. Again, bylaws don't mean anything if no one enforces it.
Oh, that does bring up a really good point, David. We talked about, I don't know if we want to talk about that tonight, about the certified mail problem or whatever you want.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's true, Jeremy. We should talk about that, but specifically to address the issue of the, if you look carefully at the bylaws, it says it's not mandatory that the executive board take action. It says that that absence is a reason for removal. It's not required. So I think a careful examination will find that the executive board has been looking at these issues in detail and that they are addressing it in a timely way.
Well, if there's 5 absences in 9 meetings, that's over 50%, and I think that should mandate a person from being removed automatically.
The bylaws don't say
There is no automatic.
There should be.
Well, there isn't.
We'll consider that. We'll consider that at a later time, but I could tell you that the rules that we've had in place have been there for probably in the same form for probably about 40 years. So I don't know that a change is going to come on that to make it mandatory. The borough president's office has the ability to remove. The borough president can remove a member without discussing it with the community board.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and I actually been reaching out to him to remove certain people, but you would think that the community board would do the right thing and not force the BP or force the public to pressure the community board to do the right thing.
Well, I think that the executive board has been looking into this recently, and I'm sure there'll be some action on it. Is there anything else, Roxanne?
No, I'd like to say lastly, and thank you for your time, that it's not fair for even for people who join the community board and they actually attend most of the meetings, and they get demotivated. I understand because I work in the private sector, and when you make a point to be there on time, make a point to always be there, and then you have all those few people who make a point not to be there, not to abide by their responsibility, it kind of discourages other people from attending meetings because they're like, why am I bothering to show up when other people don't show up and they're still on the board? For the sake of the community board, to make it not just to hold people accountable. It's not because to punish anyone. It's to make the community board more positive, more motivated to be board members. Then they realize, oh, guess what? People are showing up, and I'm glad I'm here. That's it.
I understand,
Thank you.
and I agree. It is demoralizing when you join a committee and the other members are not interested and don't show up. It's a long-standing issue. If I don't think there are any other members of the public for the gallery session, so before we get to old business and new business, I do want to return to this issue that Jeremy just raised. He did send an email about this. He was asking. Currently, the bylaws require that when the executive board takes action against a member for removal, that the letter has to be sent, the paper letter has to be sent by certified mail. Jeremy, did you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, so what I said, I think, we've had, Al brought up Sal Conforto earlier, and we had a problem doing this with Sal. He was not, I don't even know if he was in the Bronx at the time, and it got sent back. The certified mail got sent back, undeliverable, and we end up, I think he told us to email us. I forget exactly how it went, but, I think there are multiple ways that we can document that we did our due diligence to reach out to these people without certified mail. I mean, nowadays, legal document, email is a legal document.
Yeah, it is.
And you can do a read receipt, even though people don't have to respond, just like certified mail. They don't have to answer the door, so to speak, or they don't have to. So I know you said, David, you suggested that it doesn't have to be signed for, but you still leave room for saying somebody that didn't get it, even if it was delivered to the address, right? Oh, well, my mom didn't give me the mail, or my daughter took the mail, or
Jeremy, I have another suggestion.
Yeah.
Am I on? I don't know
Yes,
if I'm on
yeah.
or off.
Go, Sam.
Okay. What about sending an instant message? Most people have Facebook. They could message them, and then it shows that the message has been delivered.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do a screenshot, or you could, a simple call for a lot of these people is like, okay, well, just tell me you got the email. Just reply that you got the email.
Right.
And that would probably work.
With that. I think we need to do more electronic, up-to-date methods.
But not everybody does or is comfortable with it.
Well, let's take a step back. There is two parts to the certified mail. There's the certified, and then there's the return receipt. I would tend to agree that the return receipt is pretty much useless, because a lot of times the post office doesn't require it, or people scribble something that doesn't really reflect their signature, or they just leave it at the post office. So if we leave aside the return receipt card, the little green card, there is a way to send a certified letter that has a tracking number, and you can send that, and then a few days after you send it, you can punch the tracking number into your computer, and you can print
See
out
if it was delivered.
Yes, that it was delivered.
Yeah.
Now, at some level, Jeremy, I appreciate what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it easier, for the people to get the notices, but you're also making it very difficult on you and the office staff to keep track of all the different methods of communication. So you could just do the certified mail, print out the notice that it was delivered, and then say, we're done. You're a community board member in the Bronx. We wrote to the address that you live in the Bronx that you put on your application. If you're going to come and tell us that you didn't get the letter, well, the next question is, well, where have you been? Are you in Florida? Are you in someplace else? Then you shouldn't be a member of community board, in the Bronx. So do you really want to do and track all of those different methods of communication, Jeremy?
So it's a means to an end. I think we should have the flexibility to use those. Look, I can tell you the staff, they don't want to go to the post office right now, especially with coronavirus. And we got rid of our postage meter. And the post office is very unreliable. I sent my sister a package, and she got it a month later. So the post office is fairly good, but if email is email can, I ran this by the staff. Before I emailed you, David, as I think you know, they both agreed with me that if we can simply send an email and get confirmation, why should we have to do anything else, basically?
So
Well,
why can't we just have where we do the email first, and if that, you call and you ask them to follow up and it doesn't happen, then we go to the certified.
Well, maybe not the certified, the one where you just can track it. Because
Where you
the
can track it.
certified is
Yeah, that's a good idea.
yeah, because the certified is a problem with the little green thing and people don't
Right.
return it.
that's only going to increase the amount of time that we're giving to people on the notice, which only stretches out the process for removing somebody. It's part of due process, but that you could give someone so much due process that you'll be dead by the time everything is done, because it takes so long. Go ahead, Al.
If we start with Naomi's recommendation and send an email, and the person responds to the email, then all bets are off. We don't have to worry about anything else.
Right.
So that's off the table. Now, if that doesn't happen and they don't respond to mail, then we'll go to step 2. But at least the email will be the first line
Line of defense.
and most people will respond to the email if they have.
So I would tend to agree. If I would not rely upon return receipt for an email, because there's so many different email systems.
Yeah,
There's no
some of them
consistency.
don't have it.
So I think we're coming toward something here. Something is gelling here. We could do an email where you ask the person to respond within 5 business days. Is that too much? 5 business days. So, but then they have to respond. But if they don't respond, because a person could have the board office could have the wrong email address, which is through no fault of their own, and then no bounce back could happen because of some other system, and the board would never know that it was the quote wrong email address. So if we wait 5 business days and the person doesn't respond, what's the next thing? Is it a call or is it the certified letter?
How about a phone call second?
I
Phone
think
call.
I think the phone call should happen immediately, and just because that way that they ensure that they look at it before the 5 days, and we tell them they have 5 days. That usually would probably seal the deal.
So you say the phone call first and then
No, I
email?
say we send the email and then we immediately follow up with a phone call.
Phone call.
They can
We
check
can
it right
send
then
you
and
an
there,
email.
or they'll check it later. But hey, you got 5 days. Please respond.
Right.
That
And
will
that's
probably work in
that's
most
two
instances.
Yeah, and those are 2 things that we've done, work that we've done to make sure that the person received the information.
Okay, so you send an email.
Sounds good.
You send an email. You make the phone call right away. The phone call goes to voicemail, and then 5 days go by, and you get no response to the email. So then it's certified mail.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And then that's it.
Agreed, Jeremy?
Perfect.
Okay. All right. So that I'll make a motion that we amend the bylaws to change the notice policy when a member is being removed, that they first will receive an email with a request to respond within 5 business days. At the same time, a phone call will be made, and then if there's no response to the phone call or to the email within 5 business days, a certified letter is sent. Return receipt is not required.
And I would only caveat that with, if we know somebody doesn't have an email, we automatically go to certified mail.
Does anybody not have an email?
Currently, everybody does, but you never know. We had for the longest time, up until last year, I think, somebody tell us they didn't have email.
Okay, so I'm sorry. If you said if they don't have email, do we go to a phone call and then certified, or right to certified?
I was for the phone call first.
Yeah, I say both, phone call and certified.
Okay.
That way it's in writing as well as verbally.
Okay, so then I make a motion. Is there a second?
I second it, David.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so it's unanimous. Okay, so are there any other issues before we go to old business and new business, which I don't think there is any? Okay, so old business. New business.
So
David, I just want to, Jeremy, before you start, I want to thank David, for, this is a tough committee, and he's handled it very well, and thank God for
Absolutely.
David.
Very much so. Yeah,
He's
very
done
good job.
a yeoman's job. Personally, thank you for that.
Thank you, Al. I just want to let you know I'm going to be asking for a raise.
Double it.
I think double
Right,
it's up.
no, triple it. Triple it, forget about double.
Okay. Thank you all for your help. I couldn't. Nobody does this alone. We do it as a team, and I enjoy working with this team. So I thank you all. If there's
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
Everyone
David.
have a good night.
well,
there's no
hold
other
on, David.
I-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
I
Jeremy.
do have to agree with Alan and everybody else. You're doing a superb job. But
Fantastic.
I know somebody's going to reach out to Al. They just texted me. Is anybody opposed to the idea of merging housing with health?
Housing with health? That
Yeah.
doesn't go.
I don't think so.
No,
Jeremy, why don't you discuss that with Al offline?
Okay.
He's the chair of the board,
no.
and that's his area.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm giving him a heads up right now. Somebody texted me.
Well, we're on, Sandy and I are on health.
And I'm
Yeah.
the
That's, there's
co-chair of
plenty
the
to
health.
do on health.
When we really meet and if we have a health fair and whatever, there's a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the
I mean,
problem
there's
is,
always a lot to do. We have, issues at Monty. They're always wanting to speak to us or the nurses. I mean, there's a lot. And then you add housing is massive. So no.
yeah, no, I
that would
think
be huge.
what it is there's a problem with housing committee, just like sanitation committee. So that's what it is.
Hey, just about the health committee, were you people contacted by either Montefiore or Jacoby about these, about calling people in for?
For the vaccine?
I've gotten some updates from Montefiore, but nothing about an invitation to come in for the viral vaccine.
Okay, if you know anyone, and I'll put this out to the whole board on next Thursday. If you know anyone who's 5 years or over and wishes to get the vaccine, if you text me their
Hello?
phone number, I'll send it into Jacoby, and within a couple of days, I should get some kind of response.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you. I'll let people know.
Thank you
Have
all.
a good night.
With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right.
Okay.
All those in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Good night. Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone.
Farewell, everybody.
Have a good night.
Same here.
Have a
Yeah.
great
Stay
night.
safe.
Good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.